Sophia from Biblio Lifestyle, and you're listening to the Reader's Couch podcast, the show that will help you bridge the gap between living a full and busy life to one where you're reading, learning new things, and having fun. In today's episode, I'm so excited to chat with author Sophie Hannah to talk about all things Agatha Christie, Christmas traditions, and her new book, Hercule Poirot's Silent Night. In Hercule Poirot's Silent Night, it's December 1931, and Poirot is looking forward to a much-needed, peaceful and restful Christmas holiday. But that plan is upended when he is called to solve a murder at a hospital in a small town and prevent more murders from happening. But as he delves deeper into the case, he realizes that someone else has an even more sinister plan for him. Readers, this is Sophie Hannah's fifth Poirot, and I think it's her absolute best yet. So in this episode, Sophie and I talk about her new book, her previous works, her history with Agatha Christie, her murder mystery musical movie, The Mystery of Mr. E, all things Christmas and holidays, plus we even play a fun murder mystery game called You Done It. But before we get into the episode, the one thing I want more than anything from you this holiday season is for you to pretty please leave the podcast a 5-star rating, write me a review if you love the show, and share this episode or any of your favorite episodes with your bookish friends. It really helps the show, it doesn't cost a penny, and it helps to keep me and the show going. So, thanks in advance. And now onto the episode with author Sophie Hannah. Hi readers, welcome again to the Reader's Couch. I'm your host, Victoria Wood, and here on the couch with me is the author of many psychological thrillers which have been published worldwide and also adapted for television. But notably, she's also the author of the new Hercule Poirot novels that have been authorized by the estate of Agatha Christie. She's also written non-fiction books and hosts a podcast entitled How to Hold a Grudge. I think you know by now who's here with me. Please welcome to the couch, Sophie Hannah. Hi, Sophie. Welcome to the Reader's Couch.
Hello. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Yay! I'm so excited to have you here. There's so much I want to talk to you. So I'm just going to jump right in. You've brought one of the world's greatest detectives into the holiday season with your new book, Hercule Poirot's Silent Night. One, how are you feeling about this new one? But also, what's your elevator pitch for this book?
Okay, good question. Well, the elevator pitch, I'll start with that. Poirot is summoned to a house on the Norfolk coast for Christmas, and he's desperate to spend Christmas in London. So he has to solve this mystery, which is the murder of a man who's been killed in a local hospital. And he has to solve that murder and try and get back to London in time for Christmas, because if he doesn't do that, then he will have to spend Christmas in this dismal mansion that is about to fall into the sea because it's threatened with coastal erosion. And he'll also have to spend Christmas with a collection of very dysfunctional individuals who he's never met before. So the clock is ticking. He has to work out who killed the man in the hospital. And he also has to prevent further murders from happening because the woman who owns the house that's about to fall into the sea is convinced that the murderer is going to kill her husband next. That her husband's going to be the next victim, and she won't tell anyone why she thinks that. And then pretty soon, after Poirot arrives in Norfolk, there's another murder, and then things start to get very puzzling indeed. And meanwhile, Poirot is doing everything he can with his little grey cells to solve the mystery so that he can get back to London in time for the Christmas he planned. So that's the story. That's the setup. There's a very strange and complicated family living in this house by the sea that's about to tumble into the sea, and all of them are suspects.
Yes, they're all suspects. They're also quite odd indeed, for sure.
They are odd, but I always say, whenever people say to me, why are your characters so odd? I always say, well, I just write about people as I think people really are. And I think when you don't sort of sugarcoat the reality of human beings, we are all quite odd, each in our different ways. So I always think I'm just writing about realistic sort of putting a realistic lens on people and writing about their good qualities, but also their sort of peculiar foibles and their strange little ways and obsessions. Because I do think that the human species is, prone to some quite odd behaviour. So I always find it weird when I read a book and the characters are all normal and well-adjusted and lovely. I'm like, has this writer met actual people?
I think it's aspirational, but you're absolutely right. We are odd. I have my odd quirks as well. So yes, absolutely. I love that you brought Poirot into Christmas. That was really enjoyable. Tell me why you decided to do that now, and how do you feel about it now that the book's done and written?
Well, I'm feeling so excited about it and just so proud of it, really, because firstly, it's based on an idea. So the first germ of an idea that I had for this novel was the motive for murder. And when I had the idea for this particular motive, I thought, that is so simple, but no one would ever guess it. So I saw a way to have this sort of almost unusually simple solution. Like, oh, they did it because da-da-da-da. You could just say it really simply and easily. Everyone understands it straight away. But I knew that because of one particular feature of the motive, that no one would ever guess it. So I had what I regarded as this super clever solution. I knew I needed a house with a family in it and a sort of collection of people in the house. And I knew I needed another building, which in the end was the hospital that the murder is committed in. And so then I sort of worked from that. So I thought, how do I create this setup so that I can work towards this brilliant motive that no one will ever guess? And so because I loved that motive and I loved what I knew the solution to the mystery was going to be, I was very excited about the book from the start. And because I knew that I needed a collection of people in a house, I thought, well, actually, what better than Christmas as an occasion when loads of different generations and branches of a family might be in the same house together? And how much more dramatic would it be if they all knew that house could literally tumble into the ocean at any minute, taking them all with it? So it kind of grew from there. So part of the reason I'm excited about this book is because it's one of my cleverest and most ingenious mystery solutions. But the other reason I'm so excited about it is it was one of those books where everything just fell into place, and almost as soon as people started reading it, almost everybody who read it said, this is definitely your best Poirot so far. And so there just seemed to be such a consensus about that I decided I was just going to believe all those people. I'm quite excited by the thought that it's the best one yet.
Well, I believe those people too, because I'm here to say I do think it's one of your best yet. I love the fact that we got a Christmas mystery because, truth be told, when I think about the holidays, I also think about Christie. So it just kind of worked together. I think about Christie, then we have Poirot, and then you've given us this book. Why do you think Christmas and Christie, and in this case Poirot, go so well together?
Well, it was the famous marketing slogan, wasn't it, throughout Christie's career? The advertising of her books often used that line, a Christie for Christmas. Mm-hmm. New book every year would come out in time for Christmas so that they could use that line. I think it's because when people think about reading an Agatha Christie novel, they just think about like sitting in a lovely, cozy armchair by a fire, relaxing. And it's kind of the sort of associations that you would have with like holiday periods. Don't think about reading an Agatha Christie while you're rushing to a busy commuter train and like while you've got a deadline at the office. You think about curling up in an armchair by a fire with a nice drink, settling into a good murder mystery. I don't know, it just sort of has Christmas cozy holiday vibes about it. Having said that, I also read Agatha Christie books in other situations, like on a beach in the middle of summer or sometimes on an aeroplane. So it's not only a Christmas activity, but I think there's definitely an association there.
Yes. And it has lived on even today, present day. But I'm curious now about your history with Agatha Christie as a reader. When did it start? How did it start? Do you remember the first Christie that you read? What were your early experiences with the Queen of Mystery?
Well, absolutely. So the first Christie I read was The Body in the Library, which is an excellent Miss Marple novel. In fact, it's pretty much a flawless mystery novel, The Body in the Library. And I read it because my dad brought it back from a book fair that he'd been to. He knew I loved mysteries. He thought, oh, she's never read Agatha Christie, I'll get this one. And I just devoured it and absolutely loved it. And then I spent the next 2 years collecting and reading everything Agatha had ever published.
I love Miss Marple, by the way. I love Poirot, but I love Miss Marple. So for readers who might be listening, they're new to Agatha Christie, they're new to Miss Marple, they're new to Poirot, where would you recommend readers start? 1, if they want to read Christie, but then 2, if they want to get into Poirot.
Okay, well, if they just want to make a start with Christie, I would obviously probably recommend The Body in the Library because it's where I started, and I think it's just a very good one to sort of get you hooked, and I just found it irresistible. If you weren't going to start with The Body in the Library, you could maybe start with Evil Under the Sun, which is a Poirot, so that would be maybe somewhere to start with Poirot. And then obviously Murder on the Orient Express is a brilliant one, and it's got probably the cleverest solution in all of crime fiction. So I wouldn't start with that though, because I think you have to work up to it. It's such a kind of jewel in the crown. Yeah, I think The Body in the Library and Evil Under the Sun are both excellent ones to start with.
I agree. And The Body in the Library was the first for me as well.
Really?
Yeah. It was the first one. My nan gave me that one, though, and she recommended I start there. But to be fair, my nan also recommended May Gray, and I obviously got to the Nancy Drews as well. But I read The Body in the Library. That was my first. Yeah. Now, since your early beginnings, and I loved hearing that it was A Body in the Library for you too, to now you've gone on to be the author of the Poirot novels that are authorized by the estate of Christie. You wrote, The Monogram Murders, that was the first one. And now Hercule Poirot's Silent Night is the 5th book. Yeah. Yes. What was your experience like, bringing this character back to life, but also how did it come to be that you were able to do this again with the authorization of the estate?
Well, it was a huge coincidence of timing, really. It just so happened that at the exact moment that Agatha Christie's family were starting to think that they might want to commission a new book, at that very moment, my agent made the suggestion to HarperCollins, Agatha Christie's publishers, that they ought to ask me to write a new Christie brand novel because he knew they were her publishers, and he thought, why don't they do this? He knew I was a big Agatha Christie fan. And he just happened to make this suggestion like one day before HarperCollins were told by the Christie estate and family that they wanted a new book. And so if it wasn't for that coincidence of timing, it would almost certainly never have happened. I mean, there would have been a new book, but it almost definitely wouldn't have been by me. It was just a stroke of luck and chance and one of those weird things.
I do believe in the power of timing and chance, of course. So, but I'm so happy that you're the one to do it. And I truly believe that this one, book 5, is the best of all. But kind of getting into your writing a bit, I want us to kind of segue into playing a game which is inspired by the fact that Poirot books are murder mysteries. And as a novelist, you laid out the clues for us. And we're trying to discover, obviously, who done it, and Poirot, of course, because he wants to go to London for the holidays. So instead of who done it, we're going to play you done it, and I'm going to list some murder mystery prompts, and you're just going to play along with me, tell me what you do and tell me what you say, because we're creating a mystery live on air, and obviously you're the person who done it. So are you up for the challenge?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, all right. So 1, what event of interest happened before the murder?
Somebody told me about a murder that had been committed in the past where the perpetrator had totally got away with it.
Okay. What is your relationship to the victim? Because again, you done it.
I used to be a very close friend of theirs, but now they're an enemy. We haven't been close. We fell out in a big way and haven't been friends for about 10 years.
Ooh, I love this, because my third prompt is, did the victim share any secrets or suspicions with you?
The victim themselves didn't, but the victim's husband told me the secret that the victim had killed someone else in the past and got away with it.
What was your victim's last words?
Oh, the victim's last words were, "The brother follows the boat."
Follows the boat. Okay. What was your murder weapon of choice?
A packet of peanuts, because the victim is very, very allergic to peanuts.
Okay. What clue was left behind as to why they were murdered? Were they carrying something? Did you leave something behind? Were they wearing something? What was the clue that was left behind?
A clue as to why they were murdered, or a clue that would give me away as the murderer?
That would give you away. Good one.
One of those cloths that optometrists have for cleaning the lenses of glasses.
Okay. And what did you do with the body, or where did you leave it?
I rang my PA and said, "I've left a dead body somewhere. You need to go and dispose."
Okay. Now, where were you when the murder took place? Now, obviously, you're saying you didn't do it, but so where were you?
I was having a hot stones massage in a luxury spa hotel.
Okay, and the last one. What clue did the detectives on the case? Because I know you left behind a clue, but was that the clue that gave you away, or did they find something else?
They found an empty glasses case belonging to someone else. And so they assumed that the owner of the empty glasses case was the same person as the owner of the lens cleaning cloth.
Yes, so that was the red herring. Love it. Sophie, thank you so much for playing with me.
You're welcome. That's an unusual game that I've never played before.
I love that. So see, I love when someone hasn't played it before. That was so much fun. I love people making up mystery and games and clues just in real time as we go along. So thanks for being a good sport. But in addition to books, you also had a movie. It was a musical. It's on Amazon Prime. So listeners, if you haven't already, you can buy or you can rent The Mystery of Mr. E. Tell us about it.
Well, I'm so glad you asked about the movie because I am currently obsessed with it. It came out, it started streaming on the 25th of November, and it's actually like, I'm so excited to see it. It's been in various Amazon Prime charts. It briefly was number one in new movies on Amazon, so that was very exciting. So it is a murder mystery musical movie. So that's 4 M's there for people who like alliteration. A murder mystery musical movie. It started life as a school play. I co-wrote it with a friend of mine to be the school play that would be performed at my kids' high school. And it was, and it just went down so well. People just loved it. And I watched it performed by by a cast of very talented teenagers, and I just fell in love with it. I sat there watching it, and I thought, I have to make sure this goes as far as it possibly can, because it's kind of just pure fun and joy. So unlike my crime novels, which have some quite sort of sinister psychological goings on in them, this musical movie is pure fun and frivolity. There's a very serious puzzle at the heart of it. There is a murder mystery, and you absolutely have to solve it or let the detective solve it. So that part is taken very seriously, but the tone is just so much fun, and the songs are incredibly catchy. And I just adore everything about it, the movie, the story, the characters, and I'm completely obsessed with it. So it was a school play, then it was performed at another school, then it went on a little mini tour of literary festivals, and then it caught the attention of a film director who expressed an interest in doing a movie version. So over a period of a couple of years, he and I had various conversations, and we decided to go ahead. And so now it's just the most wonderful movie. And, the budget was not sort of Hollywood levels, it wasn't sort of multiple millions of dollars, but when you watch the movie, it honestly looks as though it could have had a budget of millions of dollars, because it's just beautifully coloured, and the cinematography is great, and the direction is great. The acting is just incredible. The cast are so talented. Martin, the director, was just so talented and added so much because he sort of rewrote the script a bit and added, bits of the screenplay himself. So I'm just completely in love with it. And one of the things I love about it most is the premise is so Agatha Christie-ish. So it starts with a stranger arriving at the home of the detective characters, and they're on their way to a job they've been hired to do at another big country mansion. This one isn't falling into the sea, but this is a country mansion called Idlewild House in sort of beautiful countryside in Yorkshire. So the detective characters are on their way to Idlewild House. They're about to set off, and a stranger arrives at their house. So they say to him, "Excuse me, who are you? Do we know you? Have you got an appointment?" And all this stranger will say is, "I'm the murderer." He leaves one clue. He acknowledges that he knows they're going to Idlewild House. So, before he says, "I'm the murderer," he says, "Oh, off to Idlewild House, are you?" And they're like, "How do you know we're going to Idlewild House? Who are you?" Then he says, "I'm the murderer." And they think he's joking at first. They're like, "What do you mean you're the murderer? Who have you murdered?" And he just goes, "That's it, I'm the murderer." And then he disappears. So the detective characters go to Idlewild House as they had planned to. And when they get there, they say, "This rather strange chap turned up announcing himself as the murderer, and he knew we were coming here. Has there by any chance been a murder here?" And everyone at Idlewild House is like, no, definitely not, but in a slightly suspicious way. And then soon afterwards, there is a murder at Idlewild House. But the stranger who had appeared at the detective's home is nowhere to be seen. And when I had the idea for that sort of hook, I just loved it so much. I thought if Agatha Christie had thought of this, she would have written a story based on it, because normally in a murder mystery, when a character stands up and says to the detectives, but also to the audience, "I'm the murderer," well, the game's up, here I am announcing myself as a murderer, that's usually the conclusion of the mystery. And I love the idea of having this sort of inverted murder mystery structure where what normally ends the story is what begins it. So we have a person saying to us quite openly, "I'm the murderer," but it isn't the solving of the mystery, it's the creation of the mystery, because we don't know who he is, what murder or murders he's talking about. Is he even telling the truth? And there seems to be no way to find out. So if you start with a murder as your hook, then detectives can follow the clues at the murder scene. They can look into the life of the victim, what might have been going on with the victim. Are there any physical clues? Is there DNA? You've got something to work with. But when you have a stranger who just says, "I'm the murderer," and disappears, how do you, find that stranger or find out anything about them? So that was just incredibly gripping to me as a premise. And as soon as I had that idea, I thought, I have to turn this into something. And the reason I turned it into a murder mystery musical rather than just a novel is that I had recently been to see my daughter in a performance of Romeo and Juliet, a school play, again, of Romeo and Juliet that was a musical. The music teacher and the drama teacher had the good idea to add songs to the play. And I sat there watching it thinking how brilliant it was. And I thought, well, hang on a minute. I write murder mysteries. I love musicals. Why don't I write a murder mystery musical? And all of that was sort of happening around the same time that I'd had this idea for a murderer who announces himself at the beginning, but you don't know who he is, who he's killed or anything. And so all of that just sort of came together. And I must admit, when I wrote it and, saw it performed at a couple of schools, I never really thought that it would be an amazing movie. And I mean, I think I can say this because I didn't actually make the movie. I had nothing to do with the filming, the cast. I sort of looked at things and said, "Oh, that looks lovely," but I basically was not involved in the making of the movie. So I think that means I can say, without sounding boastful, it's just an absolutely amazing movie. And in fact, it has become my favourite movie of all time. And that top spot for decades has been occupied by 12 Angry Men. But 12 Angry Men is now my second favourite movie, and The Mystery of Mr. E is my all-time favourite movie. I just could not love it more.
Oh, I love hearing that because my sister, so we swap books and, I'll read this first and then I'll send something her way. And we're planning our holidays because she's coming round me for Christmas.
Ooh.
And we're also planning movies. We're like, well, what are we watching this year? Is there anything new that has caught your attention? She brought me to attention to The Mystery of Mr. E because her colleagues at work have seen it and they absolutely loved it. So I was like, right, should I watch it now or are we queuing this up for when you come round for Christmas? And she's like, no, we're queuing this up for when we come round. So I haven't watched it yet, but I've watched the trailer like 3 times because I was so baffled at this man saying I'm the murderer. It threw me for a loop.
Oh, brilliant. So I'm going to have to ask you now because this is amazing to hear that your sister and her colleagues have watched it.
Yes, Amazon Prime, because we're always sharing, what are you watching on HBO? What are you watching on Peacock and on things we have over here? And we share audiobooks and stuff and regular books. But her supervisor loves audiobooks specifically, loves podcasts and loves movies. So if we're going to go watch a movie, her supervisor is often the first person. If something comes out yesterday, she watched it the day before. She's just that very into it. So when we're planning Christmas, so my sister was saying, I have a good show that we can all watch together. Because see, that's the other thing. It's finding something we can all watch together.
Well, this was, I don't know whether this was a coincidence. It maybe wasn't actually, because I first wrote it as a school play. So obviously it had to be suitable for families to come and see. But one of the huge advantages I've realized now when I've watched it as a movie is that you really can watch it with your entire family. So some of the people, we had a sort of London premiere for it. It was amazing. We hired a massive cinema in Soho and we invited 500 people and it was just the best day ever. But some of the people who loved it most in the audience at the premiere were people between the ages of like 8 and 12. There was one 11-year-old who said it was the best thing they'd ever seen anywhere ever, like on stage, on a screen. And I was like, wow, this can appeal to children, but also to, 90-year-old grandparents. And you really can watch it as a proper family movie.
Yes, and that's what we're looking for. But I did watch the trailer and I was just so baffled. This man declaring he's a murderer at the beginning was just, mind-blowing. So listeners, I'm telling you, go watch the trailer. It will suck you in. And Sophie just said it. And my sister's supervisor, who's very good with films, has also said it's really good and good for families. So add it to your holiday queue.
Amazing.
Yes, I'm really excited. But also on the note of holidays, I want to know about your holiday traditions. Is there anything from your childhood that stands out? Is there anything that you and your family do? What are some of your holiday traditions, past and present, that you do today?
Well, we always play games. Actually, our whole Christmas is very, very sort of well defined in advance because we do have traditions. I would say that our traditions don't go back that long, though, because about 6 years ago, we started spending every Christmas in the Cotswolds. We've got a house in the Cotswolds. And it was when we started doing Christmas there that we kind of formed new Christmas traditions. Before that, we had a different setup. But the thing that is constant across all of our Christmases and always has been is games. We always play a range of funny games and we make quizzes, and some of the games are really outlandish. Some of them are more normal, but there's a big game playing component. There's obviously a nice traditional Christmas dinner, which my husband cooks, which is amazing. I mean, that's basically it, really. We eat, we open presents. There's a lot of giving of presents and opening of presents. And then we play games and eat and drink until we fall asleep. And then on either side of Christmas, so Christmas Eve and Boxing Day, we have a lovely swim, because our house in the Cotswolds shares a beautiful kind of swimming pool. There's like a sort of spa complex where there's like an indoor pool, 2 outdoor pools, sauna, steam room, all of that. So we do that on Christmas Eve and Boxing Day, as well as playing lots more games. But Christmas Day, the spa section is closed. So we just do the games, the presents, and the eating and drinking, really.
Any books or movies that you can remember?
We don't watch any TV on Christmas Day. We do on Christmas Eve and Boxing Day. We'll watch movies. Can I remember any in particular? No, I can't really. The funniest Christmas movie memory I've got is when my husband and I first got together. The first year he spent Christmas with my family. On Christmas Eve, we were about to go to bed, all of us. So me, my husband, my mum and my dad. And my husband was looking at the Radio Times because my mum is a big Radio Times addict. She's been subscribing to it since forever. And he saw that Vertigo, the Alfred Hitchcock film, was just about to start. So he kind of went, oh, actually, I don't think I will go to bed now. I think I'll stay up and watch Vertigo. And I remember feeling this panic because my husband was still relatively new to our family. And he didn't know that there was a kind of unspoken custom/rule in our house that my dad didn't like anyone staying up later than him. I know that sounds bonkers. You know how, this is what I mean about people being strange, right? Mm. My dad died in 2013, so this is no longer an issue. But for as long as he was alive, if you were having Christmas at his house or even staying the night at his house, you didn't have to go to sleep before him. But when he went upstairs to bed, everyone had to go upstairs. He did not like the idea of people freely roaming around when he was in bed. And because everyone just sort of accepted it, no one ever got to ask why that was. It was just never questioned. Anyway, I just remember sort of beckoning my husband secretly into the utility room and whispering to him that he probably wasn't allowed to watch Vertigo because my dad wanted everyone to go to bed before he did. And I remember my husband sort of going, no, that's mad. I'm watching Vertigo. And it was big, sort of oh my God, is it all going to kick off? Because will my dad be able to handle it, going to sleep knowing someone's downstairs watching Vertigo? And it was actually fine, but that was just a slightly comic and eccentric Christmas memory associated with the movie.
Oh, that is so funny. What drink or food item has to be on the menu for you to say, it's Christmas?
Well, my sister always makes delicious homemade mince pies, so definitely that. My sister also usually makes a gorgeous kind of chocolatey Christmas cake. It's like a Christmas cake, but it's very chocolatey, much more chocolatey than normal Christmas cakes. I think it's a Nigella Lawson recipe. So that absolutely has to be on the menu. And then a traditional Christmas dinner has to be involved. It doesn't always have to be turkey. My husband quite likes to sometimes do beef or lamb, but definitely. Oh, and Brussels sprouts. Absolutely. There's no such thing as Christmas without Brussels sprouts.
Love that. My granddad loved to roast beef, so he wanted that on the side, like a turkey, but also beef, maybe a bit of ham. But for him, Christmas is beef, needs beef.
Yeah. Oh, and another Christmas tradition that has been going back decades in my family is on Christmas Eve, we go out to an Indian restaurant and have a curry.
Yes.
And on the way there and back in the car, we listen to nothing but beautiful Christmas carols. Mm-hmm. And that's that. I mean, it sounds silly, but that is a really important part of our whole Christmas shebang as well. The Christmas carols, the curry, and then Christmas carols on the way home.
Yes, for sure. That is Christmas indeed. So I want to get into your writing really quick because in addition to the Poirot books, you have standalone thrillers. You also have the Simon and Charlie books. Do you have a calendar of books that you write so you know what you write when? Like, is it standalone year? Is it Poirot year? Simon and Charlie year? How does this work?
Well, it sort of depends where I'm at in my contract. So sometimes if I'm just about to be out of contract, then I might not necessarily know what's going to be next. I mean, I know that vaguely there's probably going to be at least one contemporary psychological crime novel between any two Poirots, and sometimes there's two contemporary crime novels in between two Poirots. But the extent to which I know exactly what I'm writing next depends on whether I've just signed a contract and how many books that contract is for. Now, at the moment, I'm in a position of knowing really quite a lot because I've just signed 2 new contracts with 2 different publishers, and I'm going to be writing 3 new books for each of those publishers. So I know what my next 6 books are going to be, sort of. I mean, some of them are still, details to be decided, but I know what kind of books they're going to be and when I'm going to be writing them. So yeah, at the moment, I'm quite well informed about what I might write next.
So are we going to get another Simon and Charlie, a standalone, Poirot? What's the future looking like?
Well, definitely more Simon and Charlie, because I'm writing one at the moment. It's called The Opposite of Murder, and that is coming out next September, unless I fail to finish it on time, in which case it will be coming out later than next September, but hopefully it's coming out on September the 5th, 2024. So that's a Simon and Charlie. And then one of the 2 contracts I've just signed is for more contemporary crime, and I would say at least one of those 3 books, the 3 new books, if not 2, will feature Simon and Charlie. Yeah, because I just love them as characters. I just love hanging out with them and solving mysteries with them.
Yeah, I love them too. Looking back, though, if you could tell your younger writing self anything, what would it be?
Oh, how young?
Debut, prior to publishing your debut young.
Oh, okay. I would say to my younger self to be bolder, more confident, and less upset by rejection letters, because I wouldn't know it was all going to work out fine. And actually, even before I was published, when I was trying to get published and not succeeding, I always did have a strong belief that eventually I would succeed. But I also did used to get upset if I got rejections. But I think if I'd known that everything was going to work out in the end, I would have not wasted time being upset about those rejection letters.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. Absolutely. So quickly into your reading life. What was the last book that you finished reading that you'd now recommend?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked me that today, because I just finished a book at about 6:00 this evening. I was going to actually, this is an interesting question. So do you count an audio book that you listen to as having read a book?
Yes, we count audiobooks here.
So do I. But it was so funny. I was talking to a friend the other day. She said, it's terrible. I've only read 9 books this year. And I said, I think I've read 25, but some of them I've listened to. And she was like, do you count that as having read a book? I was like, well, yeah, I really do, because I have read, reading a book is like getting to know the words and the story of that book. And you do that, but you just do it with your ears rather than your eyes. So I absolutely count audiobooks. Okay, so if I'm allowed to count an audiobook, I have just finished a book called Hidden Pictures, a sort of psychological thriller / horror. It's kind of a bit of a genre blend, but it's not confusing at all as a story. It's a very satisfying and well-structured story. And it's called Hidden Pictures, and it's written by somebody called Jason Rekulak, Rekulak. Hidden Pictures by Jason Rekulak. And it's so gripping and Moorish, and I just needed something that I'd be able to be gripped by fairly easily, that wasn't too demanding, because I'm in book deadline hell at the moment, so I'm working really, really hard. So I just wanted something that would kind of wash over me but be super gripping, and that completely fit the bill. So I would totally recommend that. It's about a woman a recovering drug addict. So she's been in Narcotics Anonymous, and she's on the wagon. She's not taking drugs anymore. She gets a job as a kind of nanny / babysitter to a little boy. And his family are a bit strange, but seem very nice. And then she starts working with this family and looking after this boy. And it seems as though some kind of supernatural or ghostly presence is like communicating with the boy and getting him to draw these very strange and sinister pictures. And it's just it's one of those books that just totally delivers on the promises it makes. The ending's really satisfying. Yeah, it's just great.
Oh, love that. So, because we're also at the end of the year and going into a new year, I know someone listening might want to start a reading habit, get back into reading, come out of their reading slump. What advice would you give to someone listening who is struggling to find time to read, who might have fell into a slump or just want to read more books in the new year?
Well, I would recommend considering audiobooks because I read so much more now that I listen to half the books I read on audio. It just makes it possible to do so much more reading. Every time I'm in the car, if I'm at the gym, if I'm, doing laundry, whatever I'm doing that would stop me reading, I can often be listening. So I would say definitely get into audiobooks and make an effort to find books that you really want to read. So many people don't read as much as they would like to because they sort of feel they should read a certain kind of book or they shouldn't give up a book. And I just think that's nonsense. I think make an effort to find the books that you're gripped by within a couple of pages and read those books. I mean, I raced through Hidden Pictures because I found it so gripping from the beginning. But I've sometimes read books where they've been sitting on my bedside table for like 4 months because I'm just not that gripped by them. But I'm kind of pretending that I am. And that's just silly. Notice if you're reading a book that isn't calling to you to come back and read more of it. And that's probably not a book you want to read. So go and find something that you start and think, oh yeah, I'm really keen to read this.
Yes, read what you want, read what you're excited about, not what you think you should be reading. Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. Okay, Sophie, so I know we've talked about so many different things today, and I'm so grateful for your time. But getting back to Hercule Poirot's Silent Night, what are you hoping readers might think or feel after they've picked up this book?
I'm hoping that they will be kind of thrilled by the ending and the solution. I hope they will say, I never would have guessed that, but that is a very clever ending. And just have that feeling of total satisfaction of mystery solved in a brilliantly clever way, which is what I always look for when I'm reading a kind of puzzle-based murder mystery.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I'm a big Sophie Hannah fan, so I'm so happy to be able to tell you that today. But I absolutely love this one. It was just so perfect, especially for the holidays. Sophie, thank you so much for coming on the show and speaking with me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much for listening to the Reader's Couch podcast. Please subscribe to the show, share it with a friend, and take a few seconds to leave a rating and review. Until next time, stay lounging, stay reading, and whenever you're in doubt, go straight to your local bookstore or library. Thanks again for listening, and happy reading.